up on this week's show, we discuss which is better, seeing games in person or on television. Peacock makes a U-turn and adds a feature back for soccer fans. We discuss the magic of the FA Cup. Univision gets into the streaming business. Plus, we have letters from you, the listeners, in our mailbag section. My name is Christopher Harris, aka The Gaffer, and I'm joined alongside my co-host, Kartik Krishnaiyer. Kartik, for those listeners who haven't had a chance to listen to this podcast in the past before, we do a deep dive for hardcore soccer fans into the world of watching soccer, whether it's on television, streaming, apps, etc., answering a lot of questions, talking about the things we like, talking about the things we don't like, and kind of wrapping up the whole experience of watching soccer, whether it's, well, mostly, right, it's, I'm not going to say live, but live on television or live on streaming. And that's where we're going to start this week. First is talking about the world of television, talking about watching games. And Kartik, to start off with, and I'll put you on the spot here, but what are some of the major stadiums around the world that you've seen a live professional soccer match at? Some of the big names that listeners might be familiar with.
Not that many, actually.
Well, let me go.
I guess.
Let me go first because I already. I mean, I had a few in mind just because. So both you and I have been to Wembley, right? I mean, separately. Yeah. Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Old Trafford, Stamford Bridge. Where else have I been to? I've been to the Emirates Stadium. We went to Germany and we went to Schalke Stadium, which is, you mean, like a kind of an...
Arena, which is probably my favorite stadium I've been to. We went to that one.
And the reason I mention this, though, too, the Orange Bowl, the old Orange Bowl in Miami, the reason I mention this is that a lot of these are cathedrals of soccer. You mean, they're built... not specifically for soccer in some cases, but they're built to have fans capacities of 60,000, 70,000, 80,000 in some regards. But just watching this past week, watching one of the games from Old Trafford, and just seeing this massive cathedral for soccer that's built, that has 76,000 empty seats, that's made for ticket revenue, it's made for match day revenue, and just seeing it empty just kind of drove home the thinking, the situation that we're in right now, which is that I think the elite soccer leagues around the world are able to survive based on TV revenue. And right. Go back, say 30 years. If you said it 30 years ago, okay, we're going to have one entire year of no fans in the stadium, I think most clubs and probably most leagues would have gone out of business by now. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, so that's the thing we're at right now, is that I guess the elite leagues in the world, so the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Liga MX and Liga 1 and Serie A, and then you go down the list. They're able to survive after 12 months with no fans in the stadium practically, and they're surviving really based on TV revenue. The challenge, I think, for 2021, I think, Kartik, is that we can pretty much, I think at this stage, almost write off the entire year in terms of, you mean, when do you think there will be fans in full capacity back in stadiums at this point?
Not in 2021, I don't think. I think it'll be 2022 at some point.
And even that's optimistic in a way, though, too, because you kind of think about it and think that as far as how slow the rollout is of the vaccinations, how long it'll take everyone to get to a point, and actually that's the thing about the vaccinations. It's not mandatory, right? It's voluntary. If you want to go ahead and get it done, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I think this is going to go on for years, Kartik. Definitely past 2022.
Well, in terms of people, I don't think the actual industry of people going to sporting events will ever fully recover. I think that there will be a 10 or 15% drop off in attendances from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic.
At least,
Yeah,
maybe even more than that. I mean, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing though too. I mean, like, I know that I myself, if Swansea was back in action, playing in front of full capacities, I'm mad enough of a soccer fan, mental enough in many ways, that I would go back. I would go back to those games, and I would take that risk, even taking all the precautions, and testing and everything. But I'm not the average sports fan. I think the majority of fans would probably say, "Hey, maybe I'll wait a while, or I'll wait a few years." And even then, I mean, how many years is it going to take before the general public gets back to a point where it's not even a thought. They just walk into a stadium thinking, okay, there's no concern here. There's nothing to worry about. It's just a natural thing. I think that could take years and years and years.
Yeah.
So the leagues that are at peril, or are at danger in terms of this lost revenue, that rely heavily on ticket revenue. You look at the lower leagues, right? You look at League One, League Two in England. You look at some of these second divisions. You look at lower league in the US, as far as USL. And this week, one of the teams, was it North Carolina, deciding to take a step down, like not to play out the USL, are they in the Championship or USL Division 1?
They've gone from the Championship to League One, yes.
So you have to mention Major League Soccer, right, Kartik? I think, for 2021, if this year is going to be a write-off, if it's going to be where you aren't going to get a huge number of fans attending games, that's another year, second year in a row of a massive revenue hit. And also too, look at this summer, if the Gold Cup happens, the Gold Cup, the real draw of the Gold Cup for CONCACAF, who hosts the tournament, is ticket revenue. Mexico against US, or a lot of the teams from Central and North America selling out stadiums. Imagine a Gold Cup without any fans in the stadiums, or a Gold Cup with limited capacity, right? Or Copa America. Copa America is supposed to be played this summer. Euro 2020 is supposed to be played in, 12 countries this summer? So I think UEFA is going to take hits. CONCACAF is going to take hits. I think everyone's going to take a hit, unless you're a league or a tournament that gets massive amounts of money from TV revenue, which isn't everyone. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news, Kartik, but this is one thing that came to me thinking about today. Is there any positives though that we can look at for this year? You think, in terms of these leagues, or the opportunities to bounce back?
In terms of fan attendance, no, none. But one of the things that apparently for League One and League Two teams in the UK and in England that is being discussed is, if you can only have limited attendance, if you can only have 2,000 or 4,000, depending what tier you're in, and who knows, the tiers may get reworked again. We've obviously, there was no such thing as tier 4, right? And then London ended up being put in it, right? Because things were so bad about a month ago, or less than a month ago. The big question is it worth it for a League One team to be in whatever tier 3 where you can have, or tier 2 where you can have 2,000 fans a match, and have to open up their grounds, pay staff, go through all of that for 2,000 fans and the ticket revenue? There were some people in the football league who were thinking, you know what, it may be better off if we just don't have fans at all than having unless we can have full capacity. right? Because you still have to incur the costs of opening the stands, the staff. A lot of fans may not think about what all is involved in staffing and operations costs. I having worked in the lower divisions in the U.S., I can tell you. There are some teams that were better off last season. The fact that they didn't have to open their stadiums up and they were just playing without fans. So that's not the consideration in England, because in England those teams will fill their stadiums or will get good attendances. Now Sunderland is not filling their stadium in League One, but most of the smaller clubs are, the clubs that are really in financial peril, if they were able to open their stands. So I think that you may even see in League One and League Two a situation where there are fewer fans than there were in maybe the October to December period of this past year of 2020, and in addition, some more concessions in terms of how teams travel, the way they travel, etc. Because it's been very costly because of the COVID protocols to charter buses, to get each. If you're having, in the cases that, let's say again, Sunderland is in the same league as Swindon, right? So they go absolutely across the country as far as you can go in England. There's the issue of or Portsmouth. That's a great example. Portsmouth and Sunderland. That you have to sometimes stay overnight, and each individual player is having to have an individual hotel room under the COVID protocol. So that'll be cut out, things like that, in order to cut costs. But no, we're not going to see any normalcy, I think, until 2022 at the earliest.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns, though, actually for me, a big concern is that, say, a League One or League Two club, and this could be in England or this could be the US, this could be the USL level, League One or League Two. If a club says, you know what, for this season, with no fans in the stadium, we're actually financially better off in not playing the games. The jeopardy with that, though, is that those teams could go out of business. You mean it becomes almost like a non-entity where that team doesn't exist. I mean, yes, it exists as a business, but it's not actually running as a business because it's not able to operate. And then everything from sponsorship revenue in terms of just the reach that they have. I mean, everything's on a decline. So when they do come back, even though it may make financial sense, the amount of money they'd have to put back in to actually get the team going again and get fans excited and get sponsors on board could be one of those things where it's one step forward but like 3 steps back and then 1 step forward. It could be a very difficult situation. Yeah, so I think that's where we're at is that maybe a month ago or maybe 2 months ago, we were talking about Major League Soccer and saying that MLS was mentioning, I think Don Garber mentioned, March as a start date. And I think both you and I said that's very optimistic. We were thinking, I think, May. I mean, May seemed more realistic in terms of the way things were heading. Now, going back to soccer, relating this back to soccer and television, is that what this last 12 months has shown us is that for most of the major soccer leagues around the world, they can survive without fans. They can survive on TV revenue. The big question is when these next TV deals come up for bid, does that value increase or decrease with fans not in the stadium? I think it remains the same. If anything, it's probably, as long as the games keep on playing, it's actually more valuable because, it's entertainment. It's something that people can watch. But going back to our initial question, we went off on a tangent, but my initial question, Kartik, is which is better? Seeing games in person or seeing games on television? Do you have a personal preference?
I think I prefer watching games on television, but the truth be told, I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't think I've actually attended a football match where I've been in the stands in over a decade.
Well, you've been to Himashi FC. You've been to
Boca, right? Yeah.
Boca. I mean,
generally, I'm in the press box, so it's a different experience.
Right. But you've been in the stadium. I mean, you've been in a working capacity, but you've been going to Strikers games.
I've been on the field actually. Now that I come to think of it, there've been matches I've actually been on the pitch or on the touchline, I should say. I prefer watching it on television these days. Okay, let me dial that back. I prefer watching the Premier League and the Bundesliga on television because the production level is really good, and you get good camera angles and there's good camera work. Right. Now, for matches in the U.S., I've always felt like I'm missing something because the camera work hasn't been as good. It hasn't been as intelligent. You don't have as many cameras. The production isn't as good. I think MLS may have crossed that bridge with the Disney tournament where they had more camera angles and there was better camera work and stuff being done that hadn't been done before. But historically in the U.S., the television production level wasn't very good. And you're missing guys making runs off the ball. You're missing some of these things that I like to observe when watching a match, the role of a number 6, that sort of stuff in those television productions. But again, for the Premier League, the Bundesliga, I would include the Football League in that. I think Serie A's broadcasts have gotten better. I think Liga 1's broadcasts have gotten better, although there are now media issues with Liga, with their domestic media partner, which that's probably not of interest to the U.S. audience. But I don't know if the television production is going to take a step back. And then Spain's TV production's gotten better also. I think for European matches, I prefer watching them on television because I see a lot of the things off the ball that I like to see. The commentary is good. The production level is really good.
It's funny because this past week, watching even some Eredivisie games, so the Dutch league, the production level on those games is fantastic. I mean, the pre-match, the graphics. I mean, and that's the thing. Just overall, I mean, I love going to soccer games. Don't get me wrong, but oftentimes I feel like I'm missing out. Like if I was at home watching the same game. The production level, the camera angles zoomed in, the replays of an incident that was controversial, all the kind of effects and all the benefits of that, to me, often outweigh the experience of being there. I mean, I've been to games where I've watched it in person and I had a great time, and then maybe the next day or later that day, I watched it on television, and I'm like, wow, this feels like a completely different experience. I missed a whole bunch of things in person that I didn't realize happened, but I see it on television. I'm the same point. I think I'm the same as you, Kartik, where nowadays, I think I prefer watching it on television. Every time a World Cup comes up, I always get asked by executives from Fox or television, Telemundo or Univision or beIN Sports. The first question they always ask me is, "Hey, Chris, are you going to the World Cup?" And I'm like, I'd love to, but actually for me personally, I can experience the World Cup better at home in front of, in my home office, watching all the games on the monitors and enjoying that experience better than being at the World Cup, where I can only really focus on one game. And even then, you're in a press box, you can't see everything, and you kind of miss out. But the experience of being there is fantastic. I just think we're at a level now with television that the production's so good for the most part, where it is so much better watching it online or on television, which is crazy to think that we've come that far, which is actually a really good kind of plus for that experience of watching it on television. All right, Kartik, so that's our first segment, talking about the topic of the week, which is better, watching games on television or in person. We definitely want to hear from you, the listeners, your thoughts, your observations, your experiences. So a little bit later, we'll share the contact info to go ahead and let us know what you think. Moving on to the next section of the podcast, and that's what we've been watching from this past week. For me, Kartik, I'll go first, and actually I'll read out one of the listener mailbag, which mentions my game of the week, and this is from Don. And Don says, please, please, please discuss the VAR issues in the River Plate second leg Copa Libertadores against Palmeiras. Oh my God, what a match. But this one will be talked about for the 3 VAR checks that all went against River Plate. 2 of them took away penalty kicks when the match was 2-0, but 3-2 on aggregate. If this isn't the match of the week, I would be surprised. From minute 1 all the way to the final whistle, a bunch of yellows and 1 red card. And I watched this game. I watched it actually twice. I watched a little bit of it on the BBC, which had Nigel Reo-Coker as one of the co-commentators live, and also watched it on beIN Sports, and it had Phil Shane as the commentator, a solo commentary by Phil Shane. Both were a little bit different, even though it was the same game. The audio was better on BBC. They actually kind of turned up the crowd noise, so you could actually, well, it's fake crowd noise, but it felt more like an international game. It felt a better atmosphere. And then, but beIN Sports had Phil Shane, who's a fantastic commentator. But this game was out of this world. Definitely this past couple of weeks, especially in the Premier League, a lot of the games have felt very laborious. But this one was just the level of skill, the level of play, just how good River Plate were in this one. So in the first leg, they had lost 3-0 to Palmeiras. Pretty much done and dusted. I mean, it looks like Palmeiras is going to go through. And
although, in fairness, in that first leg, I watched both legs also. That first leg, I don't think Palmeiras were 3 goals better than River. And
right.
But it was in Buenos Aires, so the assumption was right. Going back to Brazil, it was done and dusted. But don't be fooled by the 3-0.
But River Plate, I was watching it. River Plate quickly got up to 2-0, and then they were just pushing to try and get to make it 3-0 in order to tie up the aggregate score. And had a penalty kick awarded to them. They were getting ready to take the penalty kick, but then with a VAR check, they correctly made the right decision and decided not to do the penalty. But just a crazy game. But the level of skill, the level of perfection of the passes, just the way the River Plate especially played. Palmeiras on the counter-attack could have put this game away too, but just an absolutely fantastic game, and I'm really looking forward to the Copa Libertadores final, which will be Palmeiras against either Boca Juniors or Santos, but highly recommended, fantastic game. Kartik, what about you? What was your match of the week?
Well, Santos were very negative in the first leg, so they were. I have to say, I don't watch that much South American football. I liked what I saw from both Boca and River, and have not liked what I've seen from Palmeiras and Santos in terms of style. So a leg up for me for Argentina. I know typically the impression is Brazil has a stronger league, but I really have enjoyed the football coming from the Argentine sides. I'll since you picked that match, that was definitely a consideration for me. I'll go back a few days to Gladbach and Bayern, which started the weekend. And that was a match where Bayern is allowing other teams to score first in matches. This is the first time they scored first. They scored the first 2 goals, had a very fortunate penalty, and then just got opened up after that. And Gladbach are a side that have not been playing particularly well consistently this season, although they got through the Champions League group, right, the group of death, and barely got through it, but they got through it and finished second in that group. Marcus Thuram has been suspended for the last several matches, so he wasn't there for this match. But this was a very, very entertaining match. Now, in fairness, I think it was down to these Copa Libertadores matches and this Friday Bundesliga match for me, because Chris, with this new Apple TV box that we talked about last week, and now figuring out how to do the multi-match setup, I don't think there was a single match outside of the Copa Libertadores ties, because they're at 6 p.m. Our local time here, 7 p.m. Our local time in Florida, and this one Friday Bundesliga match, which didn't have any other match going on at the same time, that I watched exclusively, right? I had and I think I tweeted it out at one point. I had a Serie A match on my screen with a Bundesliga match and a
FA Cup.
FA Cup match, right? And then I think maybe there was a second Serie A match, and then later I was getting on Fubo and doing something similar with Fubo, where I had Liga and La Liga matches. So. Truthfully, I watched probably about 30 or 40 matches, parts of them, this weekend, and only watched 3 matches totally straight through. The 2 Copa Libertadores, first leg ties, and, well, the second leg of River also. So that's 3, and then this Gladbach-Bayern match.
I have to mention, Kartik, that the Marine FC game against Tottenham Hotspur, this was incredible to watch, and to me it really sums up the magic of the FA Cup. To me, the magic of the FA Cup these days is not about giant killing. It is not about shock results. It's not about amazing performances. The magic of the FA Cup at this stage, at this point, is really kind of the David against the Goliath. When you have a non-league side going up against a Premier League side or a top-level side, and just the romanticism about it, seeing this tiny stadium, seeing all of the backyards, the back gardens kind of adjacent to the pitch, seeing how small the stadium is, seeing that Tottenham Hotspur had to change in the bar of the actual stadium because there was not enough room in the changing rooms. And actually, the TV coverage was great too. During this game, I think a lot of people fell in love with Marine FC, but there was a lot of comments on social media about, like, well, why doesn't the US Open Cup get this level of attention? Like, why are people raving about Marine FC when the US Open Cup has been around for just as long in terms of a tournament? What's your take on that, Kartik?
Because the Open Cup is... look, I go through this every year. As someone who's worked in the lower divisions, I'll have to tell you, it's a loss leader. It's not like you have Manchester United in Major League Soccer or Liverpool, right, or a club of that stature. So they're midweek games. So first off, none of the matches are on weekends. They're midweek games in the middle of a season. Right? You'll have a game the previous Saturday or Sunday, and then you have a game the following Saturday or Sunday, and the U.S. Open Cup matches are Tuesday or Wednesday. You find out your opponent 1 week in advance, and if you win, you then play the next week. So you only have a week to sell the match in terms of selling tickets, promoting the match locally, and at the same time, you've got a league game that weekend. It just doesn't work. I'm actually someone who is an advocate. I applauded Chattanooga FC the year they withdrew from the U.S. Open Cup when they thought it was cost prohibitive and they were in the process of changing leagues. I wish the tournament was something. I'm an advocate for the tournament being a big deal and being like the FA Cup or like the like the Copa del Rey or the German Cup, etc. But the way it's structured now by U.S. Soccer, it's actually a loss leader. It's great for amateur clubs, and I've been around amateur clubs that have qualified for the Open Cup. There's an amateur club I'm helping now that has qualified for the 2021 Open Cup. It's really exciting. It's like a Marine FC type club. It's really cool for the amateur clubs, but for the lower division professional sides, it's a loss leader. And Chris, this is part of the issue now, truthfully, and I thought this was a U.S. Open Cup unique thing. It's now becoming an issue for championship clubs too, in England, where they don't necessarily want the extra matches, and they're not. Yeah, okay, if they get Liverpool to come there, but then again, most of these clubs are aspirational, and they've either recently been in the Premier League or they think they're going to be in the Premier League again really soon. So I a few years ago, and I've had a lot of internal discussions in the clubs and leagues I've worked on about the Open Cup and how cost prohibitive it is and how difficult it is for lower division teams. Because I know MLS fans think, oh my gosh, you're bringing Seattle into your town or Atlanta. Well, Seattle Sounders are not Manchester United. I'm sorry. They may be very popular in the United States among U.S. soccer fans, but you're not guaranteed to sell out a stadium, and you have to and remember, most lower division teams play in rented facilities also in the U.S. So you have to open a stadium up. You have to rent the stadium. You have to sell tickets. You have to market the match. But I'm finding a lot of championship teams. This year we don't know because there were no fans. But last year, if you remember, you would see championship clubs host FA Cup matches and have significantly lower numbers of fans than they did for their regular championship matches. And that was an indication to me the FA Cup is going the same direction as the US Open Cup. And we know a great deal of managers, they think it's a throwaway. They'd rather just get out of the competition if they're fighting relegation or if you're in the championship and you're pushing for promotion.
It was funny because there was a lot of soccer fans on Twitter and social media that seemed to be dumbfounded. And I thought it was pretty funny, just that they were dumbfounded. How can Marine FC and the FA Cup, get the attention of everyone and everyone be talking about it? And then meanwhile, we have this US Open Cup and they completely ignore it. I think for many of the reasons that you stated, Kartik, those are completely valid. The one additional thing I would add is that outside of the United States, I don't think the US Open Cup is televised. So the FA Cup is a global event. So Marine FC is a story that fans around the world would have been watching this. Australia, Africa, Asia, parts of South America would be watching FA Cup games and falling in love with this story, falling in love with the whole magic of the FA Cup. The US Open Cup, I think most soccer fans, even in this country, don't even know it exists. And outside of the US, maybe Canada would, but outside of the US, nobody knows this thing even exists. So to compare the two is really ridiculous.
Truthfully, I don't know that people who are very focused on English football, and that's a lot of American fans, right, and who don't really follow other continental domestic football and other nations on the continent, quite get the FA Cup is a special competition even compared to the other domestic cup competitions in major European countries that play football. The French Cup is not that big a deal. The Coppa Italia is not that big a deal. Okay, it's silverware, but it's not that big a deal. Even the Copa del Rey in recent years has become less and less significant. Although, interestingly enough, though, Barcelona and Real Madrid, I think, have taken it a little more seriously recently than they used to. Although Atleti just bombed out of it, right? In the way, that was pretty stunning. But the domestic cup competitions in general are not what they once were, and I think the FA Cup remains on kind of a pedestal compared to other domestic cups. They're just almost throwaway competitions. Now, in Germany, it'll be very exciting. My internet was down earlier, so I was not able to finish watching the Bayern match, but they were defeated by a second division club in the German Cup, so they're out, which makes things, I think, a little more interesting in that cup competition. But again, that cup competition is something the DFB has tried to promote, but it's not it's not a huge deal.
Well, yeah, and even in the United States too, this is a competition that's usually on ESPN3 and sometimes on ESPN Deportes. So it is one that usually, unless it's the final might be on an ESPN2 or ESPN News, but oftentimes it's a little bit harder to find.
Yeah, and they have moved matches to linear television if Dortmund plays Bayern, right? But otherwise they haven't, right? It's generally been on ESPN3 or Deportes. So
before we move on to TV streaming news, I'm going to steal this one, Kartik, but in terms of our viewing recommendations for this weekend, I'm going to steal yours, which is, would have been mine anyway, and that's Liverpool against Manchester United. I'm biased on this one in terms of being a fan of English football, but this really it promises to be a massive match just because of the rivalry between Liverpool and Man United, for not just for this title, but historically speaking, over the last 100 years or so. This should be a massive match, and it's live. It's live on Peacock only for this one. So. Going to be a lot of pissed off people this weekend, but should be a great game. What about you as far as your pick?
Okay, so since you took that one, I'll go Atleti and Valencia. Atleti is continuing to get results in the league. I mentioned the cup failure. Kieran Trippier, I thought, was their man of the match the other day. That was another match I watched with other matches going on at the same time, that Atleti match. But he's now facing this 12-week ban, right? I believe it's a 12-week ban for
Wow. Well,
it's
betting,
strange.
right?
I've actually read the. I don't want to get too deep into it. I've actually read the case that was made against him by the Spanish FA. I'm not compelled by it. I think he was just telling some mates. If you're going to leave London and go move to Madrid, which is what he was doing, leaving Spurs and going to Madrid, you probably are going to tell your mates, and I don't think he had any intent to then say, hey, I'm from Credit. There were two mates involved. The guy's name, hey, go, put down a bet on where I'm moving, type of thing. So I thought he was kind of framed, but I think that they're in this position where when his ban finally, after the appeal, once he finally has to serve the ban, they're going to have a harder time. He's played every minute right back this season in the league. So they're going to need to get results. Valencia is a hit or miss side. We know that, but I think they're pretty entertaining to watch. So that, I believe, is Saturday at 3 Eastern on VN. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can look that one up. But yeah, Atleti playing some.
That's the match I'll pick.
Actually, it's on. Actually, it's on in a couple of weeks. It's on Sunday, January 24th at 3 p.m. So, because I think this weekend it's the Supercopa in Spain. So,
yeah. Sorry,
that's right.
Right. So I want to see how Atleti does in the league when we get back to league play, if Trippier is playing. So yeah, for this weekend, maybe the Supercopa, which, by the way, this year in Spain is interesting also. So maybe let me make that my pick, because what they're doing is that they've turned the Supercopa into a 4-team competition, which yes, I think it's like another cup competition now.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they did that, but that's also to offset for the fact that they got rid of the dual leg Copa del Rey ties. So, by the way, also the Copa del Rey is now different. Remember, it used to be, prior to this year, 2 legs. Now they've added additional teams to the Supercopa de España, and they have changed the Copa del Rey format. So yeah, that's right. This week is Supercopa week. I was looking at La Liga fixtures for the following week. I apologize.
That's right.
So watch the Supercopa de España, which I believe is also on BN, or is that on ESPN?
No, that's ESPN. So I think ESPN. Yeah. Well, actually, that's probably a good shout out to Kartik for the Soccer TV Schedules app, which is powered by World Soccer Talk. So if you go to the Google Play Store or to the Apple App Store, iOS Store, you can download it for free. It has all of the TV schedules for the next 2 weeks, so TV schedules and streaming schedules. You can filter by Supercopa de España, or you can filter by whatever league or tournament you want. You can also favorite your favorite teams, and it'll show you the upcoming TV listings for them, as well as streaming listings. So that's probably the best way to go if you're looking ahead the next couple of weeks as far as what games that you want to watch. Now, moving on to the TV streaming news section, Kartik, and this is one which is great news. Peacock thumbs up, I guess, right?
Yeah, so Peacock has reversed themselves, Chris, and they are now going to include Premier League TV matches on demand that are Peacock matches. So if you remember, what they had done is that you could still get the NBC linear matches later on demand, but they had taken the Peacock matches, which already there are functionality issues with, pausing, rewinding.
It's actually the other way around, Kartik. So they had the on-demand of the Peacock games, but the games that they made not available were the ones on NBCSN or NBC Sports.
You're right. Yeah. So now they've reversed themselves, and those are now available on demand once again. But again, there were some functionality issues with Peacock that I experienced again yesterday during which match was it? Wolves and Everton.
Right.
I had to try. I wanted to try and pause the match, and I wasn't able to, and I just had to let it run.
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's no pause button. There's no pause. There's no rewind. There's no fast forward.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, I mean, if you're watching a match like that on a regular, on linear television with a DVR, which is not provided, obviously, by NBC, if you have Comcast like you do, it is provided by Comcast. It's very different. It's very easy. So Peacock, I was reminded yesterday, is not like an OTT service like ESPN Plus or whichever, CBS, All Access, etc. It's effectively just a streaming service. You can't pause it. You can't do anything with it. But good news is that these on-demand matches from linear television are back on Peacock.
Exactly. All right, and the next news item is that a media research company named Kagan has reported that the average number of streaming services that American households subscribe to has now gone up to 3.1. So the average American household, 3.1 streaming services. That's up from 2.7 last year. For me, I'm probably up to like, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9. A lot of the times I need it to watch soccer. Sometimes I need it for research purposes, like HBO Max or some of the ones that may not have soccer yet. DAZN is another one where I'm just kind of looking at it, seeing as far as pluses, minuses, and being familiar with it. But so the average household is 3.1. In one other news item, and this is a big one too, Univision, the Spanish language broadcaster, Tuesday announced they're going to launch a streaming service called Prende TV. It's going to launch in the first quarter of 2021. And it will join the crowded streaming market with a free ad-supported service created specifically for the U.S. Hispanic audience. It's going to feature premium 100% Spanish language programming, debuting with over 30 channels and 10,000 hours of video-on-demand content in Spanish from global partners. It sounds a lot like Peacock as far as it being free. I guess Peacock is what, $5 if you're not a Comcast subscriber or not a Cox subscriber. But it sounds more like Pluto TV, which is free and is ad supported. I haven't found out yet in terms of the soccer programming what their plans are there, but in the graphics that they're using to promote Prende TV, it has pictures of Tigres. So I'd imagine that some of the Liga MX games, whether they're live or on demand, will be available on this streaming service.
Yeah, my understanding is Univision is going to require signups, and you're going to have to sign up for a traditional streaming service. However, it will be free and ad supported, but that way they have all your information, and you're technically a member or a subscriber.
All right, listener mailbag. First up is Guam94. And Guam94 says, I'd love to know a little more about the Gaffer and Kartik. For example, do you watch other sports? Favorite movie or TV show? Anything else you'd like to tell us? I'll go first on this one, Kartik, just because I think I had a heads up about this one earlier. So, favorite TV show for me is Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm a big fan of Larry David's sense of humor. Usually for television, I like kind of a little bit quirky, kind of a little bit different, surreal, kind of far out stuff. Same with movies too. Movies for the most part. Some of my favorite movies are like Cinema Paradiso or any of the Alfred Hitchcock movies. But I'm always kind of looking for something that's a little bit quirky, a little bit different. And I'm probably the same way about soccer too. As far as other sports, that's easy. For me, really, while I appreciate other sports, I'm like 100% soccer. So if I'm not watching soccer on television, which is probably two to three games a day now, I'm going with my kids to soccer practice or watching their games. So for me and my life and my family, it is primarily soccer 100%. I know for you, Kartik, it's a little bit different, but how about you? So tell us about yourself for Guam 94 and other listeners.
Yeah, so I don't really watch other sports. I mean, I know a lot about other sports, but I don't know anything about the NFL or the NHL or Major League Baseball anymore. I used to watch all of those sports. I never really was a big NHL fan. I am still knowledgeable about college sports and college football, but I even found in a discussion I got into the other day or a couple of weeks ago when I was saying, in defense of Major League Soccer, it stuns me that all these people who say they won't watch MLS regular season, this is not a shot at you, Chris, because you don't watch college football either, but that say they won't watch the MLS regular season because nothing's on the line, watch so much college football when literally there is nothing on the line in that sport. And then they have all these exhibition matches at the end of the season, which is what bowl games are. They're cash grabs, right? And they have no meaning other than now they have a playoff, right? But for years they didn't. But the playoff only has 4 teams, so the other 60 teams or whatever that play in bowl games are playing in exhibition games, and got into a big argument. And I realized once I got into a big argument with all these pro-rel fans who hate MLS but seem to like college football, I realized I don't really watch college sports anymore, that I think I do because I'm knowledgeable about the history of the sports and can cite historical things because of the historical appreciation, but I may watch 1 or 2 matches a year, 1 or 2 college football games a year. I might watch 5 or 6 college basketball games a year, more basketball than football, but I don't really watch other sports. I do, however, watch every golf major still. So I'll watch the Masters, I'll watch the Open Championship, I'll watch the U.S. Open, I'll watch the PGA. So that's the other sport I watch. In terms of TV shows, I don't watch any TV shows. I guess maybe occasionally, like the Ted Lassos, these kind of serialized shows that are on Netflix and Prime, etc. So can't really answer the question there. On movies, I watch tons of movies. In fact, it's funny you mentioned Hitchcock, Chris. I've got Vertigo playing right now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, what a movie.
Yeah.
And I got Vertigo in 4K. I paid to get it in 4K. I love Hitchcock films. I own in digital formats now most of the Hitchcock films. The Man Who Knew Too Much, North by Northwest. I just mentioned Vertigo. The Henry Fonda, Vera Mills film. That's a Hitchcock film. I love that one too, and I own that. I'm forgetting what that's called. But yeah, so I watch a number of Hitchcock films. I have every Bond movie in 4K now. That's how much money I've spent on that you don't want to know. So all 25 Bond films, beginning with Dr. No, ending with Spectre. All the currently released Bond films, I have those all in 4K. I'm a big Bond fan. I am a big fan of 60s and 70s movies. Mm-hmm. Got a number of those that I own, and just movies in general. And I love Casablanca. I love Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So I'm just a film buff, and like Chris, you neglected to mention this because obviously Guam 94 didn't ask us about this. You and I are both big rock music fans, and I guess that's a lot of my movies. For example, I love Scorsese films, and I think I own every Martin Scorsese film, whether it's digitally or on DVD. Partly because of his affection for rock music and how he works rock music into his. Even if you watch Casino, which I watched again recently, the music he works into the film, and same thing with Goodfellas and so many of the other, and The Departed is a Scorsese film. So I think a lot of this, Chris, like with you, is driven by my interest in music, and I think some of it's the same with you.
Yeah, the funny thing, Kartik, is we've probably lost some listeners this week. That's the thing about movies are very, very subjective, as is soccer, and as is music. And it's one of those things that I know you're a massive Beatles fan. I'm a big Beatles fan too, but you're on a whole other level in terms of that and Paul McCartney, etc. Yeah. For me, I'm more of an 80s music fan, so New Order, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Pet Shop Boys, Human League, The Cult. 80s music I love, as well as dance music, electronic music. I'm pretty much like most music, but there you go, Guam. There's some details about like us a little bit more.
And Guam, just to expand on that, more recent films, I guess the recent films I've loved have been Bohemian Rhapsody, Blinded by the Light, Yesterday, and what was the name of the Elton John movie?
Yeah.
Rocket Man. Right? Because if it's some sort of modern film with a classic rock music take, I'll fall for the film. So if I were to name my favorite non kind of political movies, because The Post would probably be my favorite recent movie, and also the other Tom Hanks movie, which was the Spy, the Bridge of Spies. It would be anything that involves rock music. So, and you may be similar that way. I mean, the music kind of drives fandom in movies as well.
Yeah, like 24-hour Party People, which is kind of talking about Joy Division and New Order and the Hacienda. Definitely. My favorite movie from Hitchcock, one more, is Rear Window, and that I can watch over and over again. That's to me a classic. So listeners, if you haven't had a chance to listen to that one, to watch that one, definitely check it out. Next up is Adolfo. Back to soccer, Kartik. Adolfo says, really enjoy your podcast, great analysis and good conversation on soccer. My question is, what do you gentlemen see on the future of Major League Soccer with their current television deals, which are a joke, and the low ratings? How will they be able to survive? Are they planning something huge that no one knows about? Or will they hold on to hope and pray that the 2026 World Cup will put the world's eye on the league? So that's a great question. I mean, the reality of the situation is globally, when you look at soccer leagues globally, is Major League Soccer might be 9th, 10th, or 11th, maybe in terms of kind of their level, both financially, but also kind of that level of how they compete against other leagues from around the world. So in order, even with the 2026 World Cup, the reality is that if that's a major success, and it puts Major League Soccer in the spotlight, which I'm sure it will, especially if the US does well, even then, at the end of the day, there's going to be probably another 9 or 10 other leagues from around the world that are going to be better in terms of playing level, better in terms of quality of the actual playing ability, as well as maybe production and other things. So I think the next few years, I mean, it really, we talked about in the first segment of this podcast about how 2020 has been a disaster for Major League Soccer financially. Don Garber mentioning that the league has lost potentially around about $1 billion of potential revenue that could have come in otherwise. This year, 2021, is going to be probably just as bad, if not worse, possibly. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways this could go. There's also the talk about possible lockout. And also the league may not start the new season until potentially maybe April or May, which is a long gap from the MLS playoffs in November. That's like almost 6 months of no soccer. As well as Soccer United Marketing, which is the marketing division of Major League Soccer, which goes ahead and markets the US games in terms of friendlies and Mexico friendlies. And if you're not bringing in the revenue from the match day revenue, ticket revenue from that, that's potentially a huge loss there too. And like Adolfo said, that the television deal right now, I wouldn't say it's a joke, but it's not bringing in the money that the league needs. And at the same time, too, that the TV ratings have really kind of plateaued. So all the signs point to not very optimistic times for Major League Soccer. The thing about the single entity, which we've criticized in the past, is that it can help the team survive. It can, by all these billionaire owners pooling their money together, there's the potential that this league can still stay afloat and still continue in the future. But overall, I'm pessimistic as far as what the goal is for Major League Soccer, which is to be one of the top leagues in the world, and the reality, which is that they're way off that mark. And the way that the league is progressing, I don't see that closing the gap anytime soon. Kartik, what about you? Any additional thoughts on that?
No, I think that there is a lot of concern this year also about. Now we're getting into rights renewal territory. This current deal expires, as you mentioned, in 2022. Not sure when the MLS season is going to start this year. There's also some collective bargaining issues. Don Garber said March. You mentioned that at the beginning of the show. There's a lot of speculation out there right now. Maybe we'll have more of an answer next week for the pod. But they're cognizant of the fact that they need to generate more revenue out of television, Adolfo. At the same time, the situation is an optimum right now. So it's I don't want to say it's a crisis yet for MLS, but they've got a really hard year ahead. And unlike 2020, where I think everybody gave them a pass, now some serious decisions for the future are going to have to be made.
Yeah, and the new TV deal won't start until 2022, which seems like so far away now. I mean, you've got this season and next season under the current deal, and they desperately need a new TV deal now, pronto, with more revenue. And there's no guarantee that the next TV deal will be much greater. However, having said that, though, with the TV deal being combined with U.S. soccer, so the rights to U.S. soccer men's national team and women's national team games, that's probably the biggest ticket for success between now and the 2026 World Cup is Fox and ESPN and Univision and perhaps some other streaming services out there would be interested, CBS maybe, would be interested in Major League Soccer rights because they know that if they can get that package, that'll give them access to the US games. And that's really where the opportunity for much greater TV ratings are, as opposed to Major League Soccer, which some games do well, but some of those TV ratings kind of peter out. So yeah, it's going to be very difficult, but the next TV deal is going to be massive in terms of importance. It's more important than ever that this next TV deal bring in the revenue for this league because the ticket day revenue, the match day revenue from tickets is not going to be there for a while. So owners are going to lose money. And again, that single entity will perhaps protect them. At the same time, too, they've got, millions and millions coming in from new teams being added to the league, and that'll certainly help them. All right, next up is Giovanni. Giovanni says, last week's show, guys, you talked about the Serie A and the FA Cup TV rights. I disagree. It will stay with ESPN+. Now with a lot more streaming services like CBS, NBC, DAZN, Amazon Prime, and many more, it will be more competition for TV bids. One prediction I have is beIN Sports will be out of the US market in 5 years or less. La Liga TV rights will be available. It will be a bidding war for it. And I think it will end up with ESPN. Imagine El Clasico on ESPN, or even better on ABC television. It would bring in high TV ratings. Finally, when life gets back to normal from the pandemic, World Soccer Talk should have a live streaming studio show on YouTube. Take care, be safe. And Kartik, I think with both you and I working from our home offices, and both you and I having children in the house, they're doing distance learning, and sometimes it's difficult to actually have the time and the quietness to go ahead and do a live video show. But perhaps in the near future we can do that one of these days. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I anticipate Alexa won't be doing distance learning next school year. Well, again, we said maybe for football purposes we're off to 2022. So yeah, right. So maybe the same
next year. Right.
Right. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think once there's no distance learning involved, maybe for both you and I, there is an opportunity to link up and do that sort of studio show during the day. But not at this time, unfortunately.
Right, yeah, that definitely would be a lot of fun. Last but not least, and this is a great question, this is from Bill Reese. Bill says, do you see any network challenging Univision and 2DN for more American broadcast rights to Liga MX? Comcast/NBC/Telemundo would make the most sense because they have the combination of over-the-air, cable, and OTT platforms in which to air matches, both in Spanish and in English. I've enjoyed watching a few Chivas Guadalajara matches on Telemundo since they took over the rights last fall. I only wish those games, especially the English simulcast, would be incorporated into Peacock. At the moment, I don't believe they are, which is correct. So that's the tricky part too, is that the games that are shown on Telemundo are not available on Peacock. And if anything, it's actually kind of Peacock is limited the number of games that are shown in Spanish language, because if a game is shown, like for example, Wolves against Everton, normally that would be a great game that Universo or Telemundo would love to show, because, I mean, yes, Raul Jimenez is still injured, but that'd be a great game to show. But because Peacock was showing it, that means that it's not available on Telemundo or Universo. But going back to Liga MX, though, Kartik, do you see any possibilities for maybe whether it's Telemundo or some other broadcasters to dip their toe in the waters and really try to compete against Univision for the Mexican League, of course?
Right. I think the thing that's challenging here is so many Mexican Americans are used to watching these matches on linear television, so it may not be as easy to pull off and put it on a streaming package. Because I thought I had this suspicion, especially when they were able to show that one Chivas match, remember, on CBS in March, that maybe CBS, given their larger interest in soccer now, this would be a natural fit, at least the English language rights. And but I just think it's difficult given the power of Univision and 2DN, or Televisa and Univision, in terms of Mexican football, and that Televisa has ownership ties even to some of the prominent clubs. But I still think that as the English language interest in this league increases, someone will make a play for it. And maybe Bill is right. Maybe it ends up being, because of the Telemundo tie-in already with Chivas, maybe they can pick up a few more clubs, or at least the English language rights for a few clubs, with 2DNA scaling back their English operation, right? And maybe it ends up being NBC and Peacock.
Yeah, I think I don't see anyone outside of Telemundo and Univision really going for it, whether it's the Spanish language or the English language rights, just because I think Univision owns that market. They own that viewer. Mexican Americans or Americans with Mexican heritage know to go to Univision on a Saturday night, and the games will be on there. I mean, and yes, if you're a Chivas fan, yes, you know to go to Telemundo for the home games. My thinking about this, though, too, is that the possibility perhaps in the future that NBC and Comcast really could take Universo and turn that into a sports channel, and then actually show a lot more Liga MX games, or try to acquire the rights to more Liga MX games and put those games on Universo and make that more into a sports channel where you have Telemundo for the big games as well as the Spanish language programming, but you make Universo kind of the destination spot for a lot of Mexican games. And that's perhaps a possibility in the future, perhaps. But outside of that, I don't see things changing too much. All right, listeners, we want you to have your say. We've covered a lot of topics in this show, but we certainly want to get your feedback and your input, questions, observations, or criticisms about Kartik or my music or movie tastes or TV shows. Feel free. You can always reach us via email through web at worldsoccertalk.com, as well as facebook.com/worldsoccertalk. and on Twitter at World Soccer Talk. Plus, of course, you can post your comments on worldsoccertalk.com. Kartik, before we go, what about Manchester City? You've been a fan of the team since, early 1980s. It's been a roller coaster ride over the years. What's your outlook for this team? I mean, do you think that they can go all the way?
Yeah, more significantly, the greatest player in the club's history. Although, again, I'm dated, so in my life and being able to watch clips, the greatest player in the club's history, Colin Bell, passed away this past week, and that I think was a shock to the Manchester City community and to the greater Manchester community. I mean, obviously, even United fans had so much respect for him, and the period of time when Bell, Summerby, and Franny Lee, that triumvirate were the it factor for Manchester City. Manchester City were the better club in Manchester in that period, from the late '60s to really the late '70s, about 10-year period. City was better than United. So so I was thinking a lot about Colin Bell when he said Manchester City outlook. City looked pretty good. John Stones is reborn. It appears maybe, Chris, that he had some off the pitch issues the last few seasons, personal issues that have sorted themselves out. Guardiola has given him one chance after another because he likes the kind of player he is, right, with playing with his feet, central defender, ball-playing defender. So he and then Foden coming good now. I think City look very strong. Ultimately, it's tough to win a title without a striker, though. So if Manchester City, I think, have a good shot, but if Manchester City win the title, it may harbin a new kind of football, because I don't remember a club winning a major European title without a striker that scored at least double-digit goals, right, in a season. And Manchester City, you're not going to have a number 9 that scores 10 goals this season. The goals are coming from the Fodens and from the Raheem Sterlings and the Kevin De Bruynes. They're coming from midfield. Or from wide areas. So that's the outlook. I mean, I think City look very good. If I had a gun to my head, I'd say right now they're the best team in the Premier League. At the same time, knowing the history of this league, it's very difficult to see a team that doesn't have an actual number 9 winning a title. So I think right now we're the best team in the league. But again, we don't have Cavani, we don't have Salah or Mane or Jota when he comes back. We don't have that or Rashford, right? We don't have a guy that you play up top that scores a lot of goals.
Yeah, the thing about Manchester City too is that they have a game in hand. So you mean looking at this weekend's games, you're looking at Liverpool against Man United. You mean if that's a draw, whether it's 0-0 or a score draw, that one could give an opportunity for Man City with their game in hand, which is, I think, next Wednesday. If they beat Palace this weekend and then beat the midweek game next Wednesday, you could see definitely them going to the top of the table.
Look, I don't want to anger people here. Sorry, Chris, but just real quickly. But I know there's so many Liverpool fans out there. I'd be very surprised if Liverpool beat Manchester United, even though the match is at Anfield. I think right now United are a better team, and they're very good away from home. I actually expect United to take all 3 points in that match.
It's amazing what a kind of topsy-turvy season this has been, right? Because Man United, a month ago, especially in the Champions League, kind of not reaching the levels that everyone thought they would. And basically, it looked like Solskjaer was going to get sacked. And then you've had Southampton at the top of the table. You've had Everton at the top of the table, Liverpool at the top of the table. Now you have Man United. Man City's hot on their heels, as well as Liverpool, of course, and then Leicester, Everton, etc.
Very good.
Yeah. So it's.
And sorry, that's the other thing I had said actually on Twitter earlier this week, was that I think Leicester have the best team in the league if you go 1-11. I think they're the best team in the Premier League. But they don't have the depth. And in this particular season, with the quick turnarounds and the fixture congestion, and they're in Europa League, so they're playing on Thursdays, I just don't think they can do it because they're not deep enough. But if somehow Brendan Rodgers, by some miracle, keeps that team fit, 1-11, I think they have as good a shot as anyone. I just don't think they will stay fit.
Well, it should certainly be an entertaining weekend for sure, with a lot of matches to look forward to from around the world, no matter what league or competition you follow. And actually, if you follow African football, the African Nations Championship begins Saturday, and that's going to be live on beIN Sports Extra, which is a free channel. All those games will be shown, including Morocco, Libya, Mali, Cameroon, etc. So there's certainly football from around the world. Definitely check out worldsoccertalk.com, which has all of the schedules, as well as the Soccer TV schedules app on Google Play and Apple TV, or Apple Store. That has all the schedules too. And Kartik, for you, what will you be doing this weekend, and what should the listeners do?
Enjoy your football.